What's up, everybody? This is Matt from Headwaters Adventure Company, and if you haven't noticed, it's really nice out. For the past couple days, it's been almost 70 degrees, and that means the bass fishing in particular is going to get really good. I've already been out, I've already got sunburnt, I've already caught bedfish, so that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today is especially in smaller bodies of water, we're going to start seeing the pre-spawn turn into full-blown spawn with this weather and the full moons that we've been having this last week. So just talk about my experience. I got out twice this weekend for about 2 hours each. Once on Sunday and once on Monday. And on Sunday when I was out, it was slick calm and it was hot, and I figured those fish were going to be tearing everything they could because they're getting ready to spawn. They're feeding up. But that was not the case. When I got out there on a Sunday evening, it was really hot, slick calm, and I couldn't buy a bite. So what you do when you do what you usually do when you can't buy a bite is you put on a Senko. And I got short strikes on a Senko, which is crazy. So after that, I started going really finesse. I started doing wacky rigged trick worms, where if you've ever thrown these weightless, you know they don't fall very fast. So it as finesse as I like to go. You could also do it with the 4-inch worms as well if you really got to get finesse. But the thing was, I could see the fish. The fish were right under the surface in a couple inches of water, sunning themselves. They weren't very active. As soon as I saw them, I would spook them. They would take off, and I couldn't get them to bite. I couldn't flick something out there and have them go up and investigate it or eat it. So I started throwing that. I put it on my spinning rod, and I was able to cast a good distance, even with such a light worm, and they would eat it on the fall. I would cast out, I'd stick my rod on my kayak, and I'd start retying another hook, and then when I came back to it, I'd wiggle it a bit, put it back down, keep doing whatever I was doing, and that's how I was getting bites. The other thing that I was doing too was if there was an open tree, if I could skip it, you could see the fish swirl if I spook them. But if you spook something and your cast was close to it, with that slow a fall, there is a lot of opportunity for that fish to come over and investigate it. The other thing with those baits is they're very natural, which we're going to talk about something a little different on the other hand in just a second. Still a Zoom trick worm, still rigging it the same way, but completely different reason for fishing it. So that was my experience on Sunday, was when I thought they were going to be eating like crazy, they definitely were not. So I came back on Monday and there was a breeze. That was about the only difference that I could see. And I found bedfish. I found a handful of fish spawning. I only messed with 2 of them, but I caught 2 bedfish. And first, I was throwing the Missile Baits D-Bomb, and I have that rigged on a 4/0 hook, and I'm doing 15 to 17 pound fluoro and a 3/16 to a 5/16 tungsten weight. The tungsten's great just because you could feel everything really easy, but there's 3 different styles of hooks that I'll throw with these. So these right here, you've got your super line, you've got your regular, and you've got your straight shank heavy cover. So your straight shank is definitely going to be your most powerful hook if I'm throwing something up to 20-pound test. If there's cover around, if I need to hook those fish and get them out quickly, definitely do the something like the straight shank hook. If there's some sparse cover around, you can still get away with heavy cover, but a super line wide gap hook, it's really going to be your preference there. And then your standard regular offset wide gap hook in a 4/0. Those work for so many different things. It fits your Rage Craw, it fits your Rage Menace, it fits your Z Craw, it fits your D-Bomb. It fits a little bit, that 4/0 is a great size for kind of an all-around hook. But I caught 1 fish on the D-Bomb. I also caught another fish on a lizard, because the second fish on the bed that I came up to, it could care less that I was throwing a D-Bomb in there. It just didn't care. And if you're going to be bed fishing, they're going to have different personalities. All these fish are going to be a little different. You're going to have to play around with what baits. Don't get stuck on one bait because you have it tied on. Have a couple of different baits so that you could put something new on. If it gets used to something, if it's not threatened by it, you have to change it up, or it's not going to eat it, or it's going to take you way too long to catch it. I mean, you don't want to be either in a tournament situation or in a fun situation where you have to spend an hour plus on a fish. You want to be able to pull up, spend 15, 20 minutes really aggravating it, and get it in the boat, get it measured, and get it back in the water. With that being said, also great baits to search. There's still a lot of fish in pre-spawn. For my pre-spawn bait, I've said a bunch of times. I love that swim jig. That's my favorite thing, a 3-ounce colored swim jig. I usually throw the Rage Craw. I love the Rage Craw. This is definitely my favorite jig trailer that for any type of jig. But because the fishing was slower, I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I did the Rage Menace. The profile is similar as far as the body goes, but the kick is not as flappy. It's a little bit faster. I'd say it's more of a brrr versus a slower swimming action that you get with the Rage Craw. Just make it a little tighter, kind of what you would do with a crankbait when the fishing's slow. A tighter action is going to, not move as much, but still put off a lot of vibration. And it worked. I got one just under 5 pounds with that. I did have one on the S-Waver that did come off, but a lot of my search bait was throwing something like that. Your standard Kitech. I like a 3/8 on a 4/0 beast hook, weighted one, just because it's natural. I can make long casts. It's something that's not, putting out too much flash. With the fishing being tough, especially in that pre-spawn and spawn, you want to find out where they are first just to get a bite, and then you could start fishing that area more methodically, and long casts definitely help. Going back to the bed fishing, I really like natural colors. They work great until the fish see you. Once the jig is up, once fish see you there, it's like, he's fishing for me, something's going on. Go to something that is visible. That's when your whites come into play. You can keep an eye on this incredibly well. If the fish knows you're there and you know the fish is there, throw this in there, aggravate him. It doesn't matter what color it is, he wants it out. If you're going to be fishing a little further back, especially if you're fan casting to try and find beds without being right on top of them, definitely go natural. But if they know you're there, do something bright. The bright color, for one thing, I don't think they like, but also you keep an eye on it very well, because a lot of times these fish will grab an end. If you have this wacky rigged or Nico rig, a lot of the time they're going to grab one end of it, move it out of the bed, and drop it. If you keep an eye on it and keep yourself from setting the hook on something that doesn't have the hook, you're going to catch that fish a lot faster, because that's going to freak him out. If you poke him, more than likely you can still catch him, but it's going to take you longer. So try to get the hook in them the first time. Handful of different ways that you could fish these. I've actually been doing a weedless wacky hook with a 1/16 or a 3/16 tungsten, just so you could get that bait to fall, wiggle into the bed, and you can get it down there. Just because, like I said before, this bait doesn't fall slow. So if they are cruising fish and they don't seem really active, do it weightless. You will catch a few fish. If they're not very active, definitely, or if they're on a bed, get that weight on there, get it down in the bed, shake it, drape it over them and let it fall. You really aggravate those fish. I am all for be careful with an exposed hook, catching the fish. That's generally how I get to. There's a lot of people who sit there and shake and shake and shake, and there's always definitely going to be a spot that aggravates them most. Find the spot, touch them with the bait. Go back and forth. If you touch them with the bait and they take off, go throw it back in there, wait till they come back, shake it, see if you could find the spot that really makes them mad, pull it back out. If he stays in there, touch him with it, roll it over the back of their head, pop it in front of their face, and he just can't help but take it right in. That's what I was doing with the lizard. It works a lot better with worms or something that has, a longer body that can fall. Downside is that they do grab the end of it a lot. So just kind of go between. That's why this little Ray Craw Jr. in the white is really, really good for a bed bait, because you could throw your bigger bait to aggravate, and then your small bait that you could keep an eye on that they're not going to miss. They're not going to grab an end of it generally. They're going to eat the whole thing because it's easy to. I've been getting out mostly to the ponds. I need to get out to the lake. The lakes are going to be doing the same thing, but they're going to have to catch up. The water in ponds, because there's less water, is going to be quite a bit warmer. So those fish are going to be spawning first. A lot of the fish in the lakes right now, if you're fishing out there, you're going to be catching really fat fish that are pre-spawn, maybe a little bit before, maybe a little bit later. They're looking for beds. I don't think there's a lot of them on beds yet. If you can find backs of creeks or pockets that are really, really warm and in the sun, you might be able to find some fish on beds. I don't know yet. And also water clarity depending, you may or may not see them. But if you think they're there, if you find the water temperature in the mid 50s and up, start fishing like there's beds there. Fish slowly. If you get bit and miss it, get it back in the same area, because more than likely there's a bed, and especially if he doesn't see you, he's going to hit it again. So keep that in mind. Fish slowly, fish like there's beds there this time of year. And the other thing is, you could throw basically anything you want as far as pre-spawn. They're going to be feeding up crawdads, shad, whatever they can get their mouths around. They need to have all those minerals to help gestate their eggs. And the males aren't going to be eating once they get on the bed, so they're going to feed up too so that they can sit there and protect the eggs as long as necessary without having to feed. The rods that I was using, I was throwing the eye rods. I like they're heavy. It's more like a medium heavy, but anywhere from the 7-foot to the 7.6 is a great way to go. Not just for bed fishing, but for any sort of Texas rigs, jigs, things like that. This I was throwing on a 7-foot medium with an exposed hook, and just, you don't need, for spinning reels, I don't go the most expensive. All you really need is a really good drag. So it doesn't take a $300 reel to have a good drag. So get something that's nice, but you don't have to break the bank. Spinning reels, bait casting reels, I do go a little higher on. But the big thing is right now, get out on the water. Right now is the time of year with this warm weather. No matter where you are, they're going to be spawning soon. So get out, whether it's from the bank or you have a kayak or you have a boat. I've been using the Crescent Ultralight. It's a little 10-foot kayak. It's 49 pounds. You can get into all these ponds. You could take it down the river. You could take it to Shasta. It's a reasonable price. If you're just getting into it or you just need to get offshore, definitely check into the Crescent Ultralight. It's an awesome boat. Highly recommend looking into it. We did have one of our team members go out and he fished some quarry ponds by him, and he did catch quite a few nice fat fed up fish. He found some beds as well. He had 57 to 60 degree water temperature. If you find that water temperature, more than likely they're on beds or they're about to be. So fish that shoreline relatively shallow. Spotted bass will spawn deeper, so you can find them from dirt shallow to even 20 foot on beds if the water's clearer. If the water's dirtier, they're going to spawn shallower. So keep that in mind depending on where you're fishing. But he was using a red Kitech on I believe it's a Berkeley jaw dropper. It's a swim bait head that has a little chin on it, but I assume puts a little bit of wiggle in it. But he was throwing this in a bed and treating almost like a shaky head and picked up some really nice bass. Red's a great color. For one, you can keep an eye on it. It's very visible. It represents a crawdad. The crawdads will get into the nest to try to eat the bass eggs. So between visibility and something that's actually a threat to their eggs, keep that in mind. Bluegill, crawdads, things they have no idea what they are. Something big or other fish, carp, they hate carp. If you have a big carp colored swim bait, throw that through there. They'll get really aggressive, and then throw your little bait in. Straying away from bass, the other thing that's picking up is the kokanee. Over at Whiskeytown, you can now get on a decent kokanee bite. They're fairly small. They're around 10 inches right now. As the season goes on, they're going to get bigger and bigger. So just keep that in mind if you are looking for some salmon, since you're not going to be able to catch them in the ocean and the river this year since it will be closed. So the kokanee in Shasta and Whiskeytown, and there's king salmon in Shasta as well. If you need to get a salmon fix, that's going to have to do it, or go to Alaska. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for you today. If you're bass guys, get out and start hitting the banks, because with this weather, the fishing's going to be really, really good, and then they're on beds. I love bed fishing. It's one of my favorite things. I did get one hit on a topwater. I was throwing a buzz bait, and I was throwing it with a crawdad, something similar to this trailer, and it stole my claw, but it was my first hit that I've had on topwater this year. I haven't thrown it much, but I was stoked to get a hit on buzz bait. Your frogs are going to start coming into play. Topwater over bedfish too is a great way to go, and I don't think a lot of people do it. They really hate things in their bed, and they also hate things hovering over them. So keep that in mind. Frog's a great way to do it, especially if it's a bed in some thicker cover. But yeah, get out there and go fish. Right now is one of the best times of the year you could do it. Come on in, check out our selection. We've got a bunch of baits to help you catch those fish. And it's spawn and pre-spawn. Best time to catch a PB, because those big girls are feeding up. And if you could find them on a, my personal opinion, there's two ways to think about this. If you find them on a bed, don't catch the male. It'll be easier to catch the female. There's some people who will catch the male, put it in a live well, and then a lot of times, not always, the female is going to take over in the bed and then defend the eggs. I don't like doing that. I think there's less chance of catching the female. If there is a male and a female in the bed and I'm fishing for them both, even if the male grabs it, I am not setting the hook. Let him take it however far he's going to take it, swim it out of his bed, spit it out, reel it in, fish it again. If he can't get the job done, she's going to come in to finish the job. So that's, in my opinion, the best way to get those bigger fish while bed fishing. So keep that in mind. Try it. A lot of the times you'll see that bass push the female away, or he's going to hit the bait first, or he's going to either come up and blow on the bait or intercept between the bait and the larger female. So be patient. You'll get her to go, especially if he doesn't want you to and she's getting aggravated. You have a really high chance of catching her. So don't set the hook on the male, my personal opinion. The other big thing this time of year for you bass guys, get a good pair of polarized glasses. These are invaluable for your bed fishing and shallow water fishing in general. If you could see the fish before they see you, you have a much better chance of catching them. And just for your bed fishing, keeping an eye on the bed, on your bait, on what that fish or how that fish is acting as far as its personality, or you'll see its fins start to flare. You really see a lot of body language out of the fish, and you're going to miss a lot if you don't have glasses on. So something about go out there, go fish, and until, oh, I didn't turn on, or maybe I did. Anybody have any questions? I see there's a few for you. Apologies. A few of you on there. I do have some swim jigs coming in. I got the order placed, so if you are interested in trying them or have any questions about swim jigs, let me know. They're my favorite thing. It's really, you could fish them like a square bill, like a chatterbait, like a jig. You could fish them like a swim bait. You could fish them like a spinner bait. It's all in one lure. I really, really like it, and it's, heavy fishing. I'm usually throwing it on 17-pound line and up. You could go down to 14 or 15 if you want as well. But I have some of those coming in. I've got some other stuff for this time of year. I've got some more glide baits coming in. So come into the shop, check it out. If nobody's got any questions, I'm going to log off. Thanks for watching, you guys. Until next time, stay fishing, my friends. Go out there, catch your big fish. Come into the shop and show me. Make me jealous. I want to know what you guys are getting out there. So we'll talk to you.